They would invite European painters to their kingdoms and make them draw paintings. So that would depict the scenes of their harems. So we will take a look at some of these paintings to know how they treat non-Muslim women and children, because generally, and it is true also, the way a civilization treats women and children is the greatest marker of what it is. So this is how Islamic kingdoms behave towards the non-Muslim subjects, and especially their women and children. So when we talk about slavery, generally we don't talk about this facet of slavery. There is one fact which is very illuminating on what we are discussing right now. The word slave in English language comes from a word Slav, which is an ethnic a word for denoting the ethnicity of Russian and related people like Ukrainians or the Bulgarians and such people. Yugoslavia is also Slavic Brotherhood. So that ethnicity of Eastern Europe, Eastern and Southeastern Europe, that is called as Slav. The word slave comes from Slav because in medieval era, when Ottoman Empire became big, even before that, but when Ottoman Empire became very big, they raided Russian country and countryside and cities and other related Slavic countries for getting slaves, female slaves, for various purposes, for general purposes, slavery also, but especially for filling the harems of Ottoman sultans and nobles, which also used to keep harems because it was a prestigious thing to do in those times in that empire, to keep harem of various women. And these women, they preferred, of course, they also had a love for fair skin, and Slavs are generally one of the most fair-skinned people in Europe. And so they would go to these countries, raid them, get these females, and keep them in their harem. This fact is recorded in various ways. Actually, this facet of human slavery is only now being discussed, because for a long time the focus of the evil of slavery was on what Europeans did to Africans, Native Americans, and others in Asia. So that is very brutal and true too. That part of human history should always be illuminated. But along with that, there is another part of slavery, which is Arab and Turkish slavery, in which Arab, Turkish, Muslim kings and kingdoms, they would raid non-Islamic countries, generally, preferably, which were very white in skin, and they would get slaves there for their own countries. So this fact is recorded in various paintings. This is not just recorded in documents. In those times, just like I said, when a kingdom is at its zenith, they don't think that they will ever fall. So at that time, they were so proud of having so many women in their harem from these Slavic countries, that they would invite European painters to their kingdoms and make them draw paintings. So that would depict the scenes of their harems. So we will take a look at some of these paintings to know how they treat non-Muslim women and children, because generally, and it is true also, the way a civilization treats women and children is the greatest marker of what it is. And so in this series of paintings, we'll see what these painters did. There is a charge of Orientalism on these painters, and it is dismissed that they were just romanticizing and exoticizing the other. And in many other cases, it is true. But in these cases, it is corroborated by other written evidence. And also, it was not like these painters went to these countries on their own. They actually were invited by these nobles and kings and sultans, because nobody could enter the harem without the permission of the sultan himself. Even if anyone else invited, it was completely prohibited at the pain of death. So only someone who was invited by the Sultan inside the harem, only he would be able to see what scenes go inside them. So we'll take a look at some of these paintings. This painting is titled The Slave Dealer, painted in the year 1919 by Otto Pilny, a Swiss artist. As you can see, the slave dealer has just removed the clothes of the non-Muslim slave girl, showing the wares to a rich Muslim prince. You can see she is cowering in shame at being displayed like this in market, like cattle, but this is what is happening. This another uh, painting by Otto Pilny, done in 1910. The slave, it is titled The Slave Market. It depicts a scene from the Arab Turkish slave market is shown here, where non-Muslim slave women are sold like cattle in the open market, and they are not even with clothes. Some of them are with clothes. Some of them, when they are being displayed, even the clothes are removed. This another painting by Otto Pilny called The Horse or the Slave. In this, you can see the same scene being reenacted. This is another extremely famous painting by a French painter, Jean-Léon Gérôme, made in 1866, called The Slave Market. This painting shows a white non-Muslim girl being sold in market and the prospective buyers checking whether she has full teeth or not, just like someone checks anything that we buy in a shop. This painting depicts Pool in a Harem by Jean-Léon Gérôme, painted in 1875. It shows that the scene inside a harem. And here you can notice one thing, that the women in the harem are white and those who serve them, they are blacks. So blacks or Africans were used as for manual labor and not for this. And the white girls from European countries were used in the harem. This painting is now by an Italian painter, Fabio Fabi, Slave Market. Muslim traders are parading Greek women in the market because a lot of Balkan countries were raided like this, like we discussed. This another Fabio Fabi painting called The Booty, in which the loot of the war, that's literally the title of this painting, and where women are also considered as loot of the war and they are being displayed in the market. Another painting by Fabio Fabi called Her Master's Choice, and the same scene being reenacted, the woman cowering in shame. Another by Fabio Fabi called The Favorite. This painting by Ernest Normand, painted in 1885, is very illustrative. It's also because it's very beautifully done aesthetically. It is called The Bitter Draft of Slavery, and he's very intent on showing what goes on there. A very old Muslim prince, very rich Muslim noble, he is sitting on his in his palace, and you can see that beside him, leaning on the rail, there is a slave trader who is selling a slave girl to him, and proudly talking about all that she brings, what she adds to the harem. And that girl is being, her clothes is being removed so the buyer can see, and she is cowering in shame. And you see uh, here that blacks are used for menial slavery, menial jobs. They are here treated um, with even more disrespect. They are not even clothed well. You can see that the Muslim prince is so well clothed. All of these people, in the same weather, the African is not even clothed. So this is how the Africans were used. This painting by Louis Davidieu in 1867, called The Slave Merchant, shows the same scene in which perhaps a Turkish chief is trying to buy. This painting by Vasily Vershagin, a Russian painter, in 1872. It is titled Sale of a Child Slave. So even in Central Asian markets, even this was done. It is perhaps in Turkestan which it is being done. In this painting, you see a black slave guarding the gate while a white girl comes from inside the harem. So once again, how the Africans were used in these paintings. So this is how Islamic kingdoms behave towards uh, the non-Muslim subjects, and especially their women and children. So when we talk about slavery, generally we don't talk about this facet of slavery. We talk about European slavery, which happened in America, and generally they enslaved the Africans, which is also extremely brutal and should be condemned. But at the same time, we should not forget that there was another facet of slavery. We should not forget that most of the pirates of Spain and Portugal, they actually organized themselves in order to face Islamic pirates. That the first greatest pirates of the Mediterranean were Turkish and Arab pirates. And they started raiding the Mediterranean European coast. And for a long time, most of these coastal areas of Europe were completely depopulated because all the villages, all the towns, after repeated attacks and slave raids, they fled inside, several kilometers inside. To counter them, Europe by 13th, 14th century became strong, and 15th century, there were lots of pirates, their own pirate ships too, who controlled this activity, and they did the same brutalities, of course. So they were not like humanitarian forces, but from the point of view of Christendom, in the Christian countries, they were a force which was thrown to counter Turkish slave raids, Arab and Turkish slave raids. So this is the proper perspective of history that we should pay attention to. Thank you.